Okay, good morning, everyone. October the 12th, Wednesday. Beautiful rainy day with beautiful leaves out there. So welcome, everyone. We're just having finished up and completed our family and friends Thanksgiving. So I hope everyone had a great long weekend. This is our last General and Finance Committee meeting. And I want to thank all of the committee present for their diligence and hard work and stick-to-itiveness over these last 4 years. So thank you for that on behalf of certainly myself and our staff here at the township, and I do believe the public as well. So thank you for that. I will call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. I will confirm that we have, let me see, we have Councillor Hayes sent her regrets, and Councillor Nishikawa, I'm not certain is here, but I do believe we have everyone else present. Is this, there's one connecting to audio. Can we see that? Do we know who that is? Oh, so Alan Edwards. Okay, so I will then confirm that we have two members missing, that being Councillors Nishikawa and Councillors Hayes. I will also confirm the CAO clerk and members of the senior management team and staff are present here with us today. And public input on the agenda was invited at TML public comments at muskokalakes.ca. Comments were received from the Moon River Property Owners Association regarding the dark sky bylaw, and public comments were received from the Brandy Lake Association regarding short-term rental. So thank you, public, for that. Duly noted. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. I would indicate a supplementary agenda if there were one. There is none issued today. Item number 3 is a disclosure of pecuniary interest. I would ask committee members if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest here today for our GNF meeting. No, seeing none. Thank you, committee. Motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite this meeting, and members shall physically raise their hands until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote. Okay, so we're into our meeting agenda. Item number 4, which is invited delegations. Our first delegation is Mr. Thompson to attend regarding the Muskoka Area Indigenous Leadership Table presentation. And there you are, sir. Welcome.
Hi.
And thank you for this opportunity to hear your story. I just would acknowledge before you begin that Councillor Nishikawa is present with us here now. Thank you for that. Okay, sir, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, I just a technical question. How much time do I have?
We'd like to hear you, sir. So, we'll give you the time that, I don't know, 30 minutes. If that works for you, we'd like to hear your story. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, I was asked to share a slide presentation that I did at the leadership committee. I couldn't share the whole thing, so I've shared an abbreviated version of it. And fasten your seatbelts and I'll take you through it. So we could go to the first slide. This will show you, actually I should do an introduction. Walking over to Hodana, say real quick. Karihwakeron Thompson. Greetings, everybody. I hope you're all well today. I am Karihwakeron. I come from the Bear Clan family of the Mohawk Nation here in Wahta. Our family lines come through the female line, and so we have Bear Clan families, Wolf Clan families, Turtle Clan families, and what it really means is that we're if you're in a Bear Clan family, you're related to one another because of your mother's lineage. It could go back hundreds or thousands of years. So I'll take you to the first slide and tell you where Mohawk people come from. We're part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy of Nations. So the 5 original nations, the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca, have our homelands here south of Lake Ontario. This is a map prepared in 1690 by Father Louis Hennepin. He was preparing this for the British leadership, showing you the great villages of the Iroquois and the small villages of the Iroquois. Normally it was the French who called us the Iroquois. And as you know, they came down the St. Lawrence River, first in around 1533, and then they paused. They came back in the early 1600s. At the same time, the Dutch came into the eastern seaboard in this area. They were gradually replaced by the English around the 1660s, and we established a long friendship with the British Crown. You can flip the slide over. In those years, when after Europeans started to settle on the eastern seaboard, we started to acquire some things we had never experienced before, like influenza and smallpox. And our population was decimated. In addition, there was conflict between the British and French. We allied with the British against the French. And so we were involved in lots of wars, and we had wars with other nations as well. So there was extreme upheaval in our communities. Well, the French had established a mission settlement on the island of Montreal. And many Mohawk people moved to that settlement in the starting around the 1690s. So enough people had gone there, and there were enough colonists coming in, that the Sulpician missionaries, a sect of the Roman Catholic Church, thought it would be good to relocate us to another place. So they asked their king for a grant of land, and he gave them one just a little farther northwest of Montreal, in the area present day called Oka, Quebec. Across the river in Ontario is Hudson, Ontario. In that area, there was a seigneury granted to the Sulpicians, quite a broad chunk of land, and the Mohawk people were encouraged to move over there, as well as the Nipissing people and the Algonquin people. There's a recitation of the history there by a Ganisadage spokesperson. Mohawk people call that area Ganisadage. So one of the leaders there in 1787 spoke about that history. He said, we were told that it was no longer proper that any Indian should live on Montreal Island, and that if we would consent to go and settle at the Lake of Two Mountains area, we would have a large tract of land for which we should have a deed from the King of France as our property to be vested in us and our heirs forever, and that we should not be molested in our habitations. Although it was very inconvenient for us to be quitting our houses in small clearings, we accordingly set out and took possession of the land assigned to us. And as was the custom of our forefathers, we immediately set about making a belt. And that's what you see in front of you, which we now deliver to you, by which our children would see that the lands were to be theirs forever, as was customary with our ancestors. We placed a figure of a dog at each end of the belt to guard our property and give notice when an enemy approached. And as soon as it was finished, we spread it out on the ground and covered it with earth, that no evil-minded person should find it. So it's known as the Two-Dog Wampum Belt. So it tells about that story. So on one hand, the Sulpicians asked for a grant from the King of France to be able to educate Indians. On the other hand, the Mohawk people who moved there thought it was a recognition of Mohawk lands. Throughout the 1700s, there's a difficulty in the relationship between the Indigenous people at that area at that seminary, and with the leaders of the seminary. The leaders of the seminary start to assert their authority and start to prevent people from cutting wood for their houses or cutting wood for heating. They want to give permission to each person. And by the time you get to the 1800s, there's petitions emerging from the Indigenous people there, asking for some kind of relief from this type of relationship. The Nipissings gradually move. They relocate. They end up in present-day Pecuniary, Golden Lake area of Ontario. Some move further to Lake Nipissing area, Nipissing First Nation area. The Algonquins move. They go over to Desert River, present-day Maniwaki area. The Mohawks stay. So in 1868, most of the Mohawk people left the Catholic Church in protest of the oppression they were feeling. They tried to build a Methodist church, and the Sulpicians had it torn down. And that starts a new round of petitioning. A lot of the petitions were written in Mohawk because that was the language the people spoke, and many of them had learned to write it. There was a French writing system was introduced for Mohawk language, and several had learned to write it. So I have copies of a number of petitions written in Mohawk, French, and English. They're quite interesting. The oppression actually gets greater. The British government that has now become Canada has dispensed with the seigneurie system, and the Sulpicians are now selling off the lands to others, to cottagers. In some of the records it says to people from Montreal, but the lands they're selling are places where Mohawk people are trapping or hunting, and now their ability to sustain themselves is being challenged. Again, they're being prevented from cutting wood, from maintaining a livelihood, and so there's conflict starts to happen. The police are employed by the seminary to try to keep Mohawks in line when they start doing things like cutting wood. So, for example, in 1877, a fence was taken down. They wanted to use that wood, and they cut a number of trees. The police charged 47 people with mischief offenses. There's an interesting notice about that, and it contains many of the names of people who ultimately moved here. Later in 1877, the Catholic Church was burned down. 14 Mohawk people were charged with that offense. They went through 4 different trials, and juries could never come to a decision. Ultimately, they weren't prosecuted. You could change the slide. Several attempts were made in the 1870s to try to move us to different places. Attempts were made to move us into the North Bay area, both sides, Ontario side and Quebec side, Doncaster, Quebec, over there by the famous ski hills. There were a few other areas that were proposed. Ultimately, in 1880, the federal government made an overture to the province and said, "Do you have any land where we could send these people?" And the province said, "Yes, we're just opening up this area we've surveyed in Muskoka." And so they made 25,000 acres available. So that's an overhead Google shot of the territory. That area in purple was later taken back by Ontario in a deal with the federal government in 1917. You see, when they came to an agreement, now they had to explain it to the Mohawk people and said, "Hey, we found land for you." So the agent went and talked to some of the people, and he found some that would agree to move. He found others that were opposed to moving. And so they worked with the ones who would agree to move. In the end, roughly just close to a third of the community were willing to move to here, about 132 people. The Sulpicians were asked to pay for the land, 25 cents an acre, and they did, with an agreement that if not all the land was allocated, they would get a reimbursement from the feds. So in 1881, 3 people came over to inspect the land, thought it was pretty good. So by the fall of 1881, 132 people got on a barge on the Ottawa River, went down to Montreal, caught a train, got to Toronto, and got another train, got to Gravenhurst. And then they were told, you know, we had promised that there'd be houses waiting for you over there, but hate to inform you, we have to pick up tents here in Gravenhurst. So on October 31st, 1881, the delegation arrived down the Musquash River, and we call the place they arrived Red Rock, presumably because the rock is red. It's a nice area there. And they landed there, set up their tents. A couple of people went out hunting, got a deer. So when they were able to feed the people that night. There were other conditions about transferring that land. They were going to allocate 100-acre lots to individual families in the same way they would with settlers coming into Muskoka, Parry Sound. So they did that within the territory. After all the allocations were done, there was a discussion that not all the Mohawks had left Gunasadage, and they used that as justification later for taking that 10,000 acres away. Most of that is coming back as a result of a land claim. I'll talk about that a little bit after a while. Later, the people had to build their own houses after that winter passed. They had to build their own houses, establish farms. There were squatters living there. There were loggers there. Some had established cabins, and there was conflict with them right away. The loggers were trying to protect their interests, and the Mohawk people had been told, "This is yours. You're free from oppression now." So threats were made. The first chief of the territory was a guy named Louis Nation, Ganaraganyade, and he received written threats if the people didn't move. So Indian Affairs called in the police. Police officer came from Shanty Bay, Mr. O'Brien, Constable O'Brien. He said, well, these people are in difficult circumstances. They're trying hard to get their farms cleared, and yet they don't have enough food to sustain them. So he asked the government to provide them with some supplies for the winter, some flour, some meat, he said some beef, and some tea. It's funny to see the correspondence between Sir John A. Macdonald, the Prime Minister, who was also the Indian Affairs Minister, and Van Coonet, who was essentially the Deputy Minister of Indian Affairs, Assistant Secretary, they called him back then. They said, you know, this is quite expensive if we do that. Why don't we provide them with cornmeal, corned beef, and tea? And so that's what they did. If anyone who's dealt with Indian Affairs for any period of time knows they have a long history of shortchanging things in quality terms. All right, you can switch the slide. That's one of the oldest pictures we have of the community. That goes back to around the turn of the 1900s. See, the people are well dressed. The Methodist Church, later the United Church, became the kind of the community hub for them when they were here. I'm going to tell you just Philip LaForce was he was a second generation person from here. His parents had traveled from Gunasadage to here. Philip later became a newspaper columnist for the Muskoka Gazette, Bracebridge Gazette. He would write a local column, but he also wrote a little history and a book about this time. And he said, here's how he described that journey to get here. He said, after passing through Gravenhurst, some did stay in Gravenhurst for the winter. The rest of them went on the steamboat to Bala. They stayed a little while. The big shot was down there from the department to see the Indians. He writes in broken English, if you've never seen his writing. Then the band began shooting the Cedar Rapids without mishap. 3 more rapids to go through, but every one of them is navigable. They landed at Indian Chute at 3 p.m., October 31st, 1881. After all landed safely, their chief gave orders to put their tents up in a winterized plan as he scanned the sky, and with clouds lowering and seemed to be heavy laden, and exhort to lay up wood, it might snow. True to his predictions, it did snow that night. Next morning, November 1st, the snow fell a foot deep. Said, he talks about them going to hunt deer for venison and then working their way inland. He said 25 families arranged to come. And then he goes on to list who those families were. Some of those old, you can move on to the next picture. There's a few old pictures from that time, but we can't identify all of them. So in addition to farming, they engage in a lot of other activities. Like making lacrosse sticks, making moccasins. You can see here, that's actually my great grandma selling moccasins at Indian River Reserve in Port Carling. They engaged as hunting guides, fishing guides. They were big in the logging industry. So all those things helped get them through at the time. Can move on to the next slide. And in later years, we developed the Cranberry Marsh. And around I think it was in 1968, working with Orville Johnson, they developed a Cranberry Marsh here. Took about 5 years for the first berries to produce. And the old timers they tell us about planting those vines by hand and harvesting them by hand using these little scooping tools. I'm still trying to locate one. I haven't been able to locate one, but they had a very intimate relationship with the marsh because almost everybody here at the time participated in its development. Move on to the next slide. Those are some of the products that were created at the marsh. We can move on to the next slide. And I don't know if you can see on here, but it might be a little rough, but you can see the outside edge. If you compared it to the map I showed you before with the different colors, you can see here some have diagonal lines on them. Those are lands that are coming back to the community. And you could go to the next slide. It roughly amounts to 8,300 acres. We had some of our own professionals too through the mid 1900s. We had what's now Muskoka Road 38. When it was built, it was just a path apparently when they first arrived here. So they enlarged it to a road and later connected it to what's now Highway 400. So for many years, there was a road captain here. Usually they were voted on, and someone was given that responsibility. We also, for most of the 1900s, had a game warden, we had a fire marshal, and we assigned somebody the role of a police officer or peacekeeper. All those positions kind of disappeared by around the 1960s. So we don't have those professionals anymore. We also had we had a lot of people who made things. We had blacksmiths here, we had boat makers, and again, people who made a lot of traditional crafts, from anything to do with woodworking, baskets, to leather work. We don't have them anymore either. We have people who know, but they don't do it for a living. You might have heard of residential schools. We just had the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation on the 30th. We had a lot of people from here sent to residential school. For the size of our population usually hovered between 130 to 170 throughout the time we've been here. So imagine the impact on our community when roughly 42 of our people were taken to residential school within about a 15-year period, from the 1930s into the 1940s. They were sent to four different residential schools. Roughly 12 to 15 went to this one in Chapleau, which is about 800 kilometers from here. This school is no longer standing. My Uncle Tommy, my Uncle Howard, and my Uncle Roy were among those sent here. You can go to the next slide. And a number were sent to the Mohawk Residential School in Brantford. My mom went there. Several were sent to Mount Elgin Residential School in Munsey, Delaware First Nation, which is near London, Ontario. And then 2 were sent to Shingwak. And I still don't know why they were sent there. That was my Auntie Iris and my cousin Katie. Auntie Iris used to tell the story of the day they were taken. She talked about the black car showing up in their driveway. A man got out and came to the door. He came and got her and Katie and took them up to Parry Sound. And she described that they were then put in a room. The door was closed behind them, and there was no furniture in that room. She figures it was an office. She said darkness came, and she said she was scared. So Katie went and hugged her and said, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Auntie Iris was 6 years old, and Katie was 6 years and 3 months. So she said after darkness came, that door opened once again. What they saw was a hand putting a bucket in the room for them. They figured out that was for them to go to the washroom. The next day they were put on a train to Sault Ste. Marie, to Shingwak Residential School. And they weren't allowed to come home in the summer. So they didn't come home till they were 16 years old. So by then, they didn't know the language of their parents. So when they got off the train 10 years later to meet their parents, there's a story how they didn't recognize their parents. And secondly, they didn't speak the same language. My Auntie Iris later regained it. But the residential school did a lot of damage. Its primary intent was to separate our families, separate our communities, so that we'd melt into the world as stable workers and maids and things like that, farm workers. But there was, just as important to the ones who ran those schools, was the brainwashing aspect, to try to inculcate us with Western European values. So those are the names of people who attended from here. So yes, it did a lot of damage, and we're still living through it. Next slide. After 75 years, located in this place, we had a huge celebration. And what would 75 years be? 1956. It was a big community celebration. Dignitaries came from around the area. And the people here built this monument. It's just down the road from where I'm talking to you right now. And on that plaque, they put the names of the leaders, the chiefs who had been here since the beginning. It's kind of a nice place to go. I kind of hope, it's just been redone, so there's a new faceplate. My hope was to put the names of the original families on there. But this, I think this faceplate is going to be posted publicly in another area of the community. So it's an important time for us. Next slide. Over the years, we've made connections with the other Mohawk territories in different ways, primarily through our cultural ties and linguistic ties. So I don't know how many of you remember the Oka crisis. It was a long time ago, 1990. It's kind of funny when I talk to students and ask them about anything before the year 2000. Seems like ancient history for a lot of people. 1990, you might recall the mayor of the town of Oka wanted to expand a golf course into an area called the Pines. There's an old cemetery there, and that's actually where Louis Nation is buried. He wanted to turn a 9-hole golf course into an 18-hole golf course. The people stood up to stop it. That ultimately led to a conflict with the police, and Canada sent the army in later. They deployed over 3,000 troops against a group of people that was roughly 50 or 60 people, men, women, and children. When their community was blockaded by the army, we were sending over food supplies from there, and we were joining in protests on Parliament Hill. So there's a group of us from here on Parliament Hill. We've also, we joined in on other issues that broadly affect Indigenous people across the country, from Orange Shirt Day to petitions for justice on other issues that affect all of us. So next slide. And we've had a bit of a cultural revival over the last couple of decades, relearning our songs, relearning some of our ceremonies, and trying to relearn our language. When the people first came here, they were all Mohawk speakers, including the non-Indigenous spouses. There were some non-Indigenous spouses who came here, and they could speak Mohawk. The residential school era, again, did a lot of damage. After the 40s, you start to see the emergence of unilingual individuals here, people who can't speak the language of the community. And so we're at the point where our language is in great danger here. But again, there seems to be a good spirit around trying to encourage speaking of the language, encourage relearning our songs, relearning some of our, I hate to say that's culture. Culture is the way we relate to one another, but some of the other interesting features of our culture. So people like to say culture is over there. It's the painting on the wall. It's the basket on the shelf, but it's not. Culture is how we act, how we behave, how we live, and these are aspects of it. So next slide. So we're even growing some heirloom seeds now that other communities have protected. So we trade with them for seeds, and so you'll see some giant squashes in that picture. You'll see you can see a little bit of corn behind the guy in orange. Those are corn seeds that our people have grown for many generations, going back to the time corn first appears in northeastern North America. We make different dishes with that. Our famous corn soup, corn mush. You can't go into any Mohawk territory without having corn soup. It's been a staple for us for so long. And also old beans. We also grow old beans. So corn, beans, and squash are known in our culture as the three sisters. They're historically grown together in mounds. And so we've done mound planting from time to time, and we've been successful at it. So each year we put in a community garden with a lot of these heirloom seeds. You'll see a basket there in the front. That's an old style burden basket. Typically, you strap it onto your back, and that's where you throw your corn as you're going through your cornfield. So, next slide. And that particular picture you'll see on either end, you'll see that sign on either end of the community. We have a teaching that tells us, that reminds us that if we're making decisions for the people, that we need to consider the unborn as part of that. They're as if they're in the room with us. That we should think of the impact on our decisions on the unborn, and in fact, we should be thinking of the impact of our decisions 7 generations in front of us. So it's a good reminder when we put it on the road like that. It's a good reminder to us to keep that in, to make that part of us in any deliberation that we're having. So we put it out there like that. I'm sorry I couldn't share a lot of old pictures with you. Our technology didn't allow that. This slide presentation was large enough in memory. If I put pictures on it, I wouldn't have been able to send it to your technical team. So sorry about that. But I'll leave it there. That's an overview of our history.
Well, Tim, thank you. An amazing, what a story. I guess we can't contemplate our future if we don't understand our past. And I think that's what a lot of people in this world are trying to do. I will mention the Muskoka Area Indigenous Leadership Table, which is a district initiative. I'm going to ask our mayor to speak to that, Tim. So just hang with us, Tim. Thank you. Mayor Harding?
Tim, first of all, thank you so much for once again this presentation. I think it was in August you presented this to our Indigenous table, and certainly educational. I think it certainly helps all of us understand a little bit more about what has gone on, and we all do need to understand more. So thank you for your time today, first and foremost. I will talk a little bit. If you remember, we all had to have a very quick meeting last Thursday. Later on in the afternoon, Councillor Nishikawa joined myself as we signed the Friendship Accord. And what's been going on is for the past 3 years, almost 4 years, but just after the flood had started, we met first at Moose Deer Point, roughly quarterly. Myself, the other mayors around the 6 municipalities, district chair, and also all the First Nation leaders, Wahta, Moose Deer Point, Rama, we get together, and basically it's a working group to share our own experiences, what goes on within our own communities, our own councils. It has really been enlightening for myself, but also for everyone. It's called the Friendship Accord, and mostly because it has become a friendship as we sit around that table and to learn about our history here in Muskoka, the devastation of which we've caused the Indigenous communities, and as we really try to rebuild relationships. So I encourage everyone to continue on your own journey in learning this going forward. And again, Tim, thank you. I'm not going to try to pronounce your real first name, I think what you actually commented was that you were given an Indigenous name, but then given a white name, if you will, so that we could all pronounce it better. And I think that's where they came up with Tim for yourself. But your knowledge is absolutely astounding. And every time I've seen this presentation now, I learned something new. So thank you for that. And thank you for being our partner as we try to rebuild together.
Appreciate that. Many
Thank
thanks.
you. Okay, Tim, thank you. Have a great day. Travel well. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you. Okay, item 4B, committee. We're now going to hear from Mr. Patient, Mr. Michael Silver, to attend regarding a Southwood Road and a renaming proposal that he's got for us to hear. Thank you. Michael, go ahead, sir, if you can see you there. You good, Michael? Are you muted?
I don't think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome. You've got the floor, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I have an idea that I think would be good for Torrance, good for Muskoka, and it plays up to the history of Torrance in a way that is good for tourism and good for local lore. As you all know, Torrance has been designated the village with a royal past. This was done by the township. It's on the signs when you enter the town. And there are a number of streets in Torrance. There's Queen's Walk Road, Queen Street, King Street, Elizabeth Street, and things like that. And unbelievably, something else has happened to Torrance in its history to cement the moniker of village with a royal past. And in light of Prince Philip's passing and the Queen's passing, I think it's the right time to bring this up and give the township the opportunity to play it up a little. The fact is, but for the intervention of Prince Philip, there wouldn't be a Torrance Barons today. I am quite certain of that. The story briefly is this. I was lobbying in the early 90s for the creation of a conservation reserve in the Torrance Barons, and I was getting nowhere. I was told that that kind of land was protected in Georgian Bay National Park, which is very small and very hard to get to. I was literally told by the MPP at the time that the idea doesn't produce any jobs, so he wasn't interested. There was a World Wildlife Fund dinner in November 1993 at Ontario Place in Toronto. And I read in the paper that Bob Rae, the premier, was going to be there. And so I crashed it. I didn't have a ticket, but I went and I got in. And Prince Philip gave a speech. He was the head of the World Wildlife Fund. He was there too. And every time he entered a room, there were trumpets blaring and the whole bit. And he gave the Rae government A for intention, C for results on the environment. He was very blunt. Afterwards, they were talking. And I walked down to the podium. I literally interrupted and I said to Prince Philip, Your Highness, in light of your report card on the Rae government, I agree wholeheartedly. And I started to say, I have a conservation reserve ready to go on a silver platter. And I turned to Bob Rae and I said, and I can't get your government to pay any attention to it. And I must have talked, to me, it seemed like a long time about the Torrance Barons. I'll bet it was only 20 or 30 seconds. After which Rae looks at Bob Rae, Philip looks at Bob Rae and he goes, you should listen to this man. And he turned around, turned his back to Bob Rae and walked away. And that left me and Rae talking. 1 week later, Rae's executive assistant with his girlfriend came. I took them on a hike. All the wildlife showed up. All of a sudden, Dan Waters, who was the MPP, became very supportive. The public hearings were scheduled and it started to happen. And you know what? It's a great example of how monarchy, with some soft power, even a little intervention, can go a long way. Philip did more in a minute than I had done in a year of lobbying. And so my idea is to name the stretch of the district road from Torrance to the Torrance Barrens the Prince Philip Way. This has to come as a resolution passed by the township requesting the district to name that bit of road and to sign it accordingly. But it is unbelievable that this little town, this little village with a few hundred people, actually has these elements of a royal connection. Of course, the first was a 1959 visit. And I think it would play up the concept of village with a royal past if this stretch of road were named the Prince Philip Way. So I'm asking for a resolution today to ask the district to do that. Again, without Prince Philip, I don't think the effort would have gone anywhere. And it's fascinating that Torrance got this little bit of attention from the royals. There's, again, precedent for it. The town has obviously named some of the streets in Torrance after Philip and Elizabeth and all that. And this all occurred, by the way, in November 1993. So that's my idea.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Well said. A great effort as always with you. Very persuasive as well. I think before I ask committee for any commentary, I see the mayor has got his hand up. I might ask Director Becking in terms of just for him to come on, being as how he is our public works, very specifically to the roads piece. Perhaps just for an obvious overhead thought on procedure here. Before I seek any sort of consensus, but I'm just wondering, Director Becking, if you could share some light on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't profess to know all of the ins and outs of protocol, but it would seem to me that it is a district road, so it would be up to the district to name it. And there are provisions within the Municipal Act that allow for a municipality to assign a name to a roadway, or a road authority to assign a name to a road authority. It may be appropriate and necessary to consult the federal government through the protocol office or the Governor General's office, but I'll leave that to the district to decide how they choose to pursue that. But the deputant is correct that certainly the district will require the township's support for the initiative prior to considering it themselves.
Okay, thank you. And just a supplementary to that, is there an order to this, to what you just said at the end there?
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that it would be appropriate for the township to consider the matter and make its views known first. It then would be forwarded to the district via a resolution of committee or council, and then it would be up to the district to decide how they choose to proceed after that. Certainly, I can have. Depending on the direction of committee, I can have discussions with staff at the district, and we can map out a strategy to move forward if that's the wish of committee and council.
Good, thank you very much for that. I'll call on the mayor.
Thank you very much. Director Becking has sort of suggested much of what I was going to suggest at the end of the day. I do believe that we could have Director Becking bring a quick report to council next month, outlining some ideas. I would also suggest that we utilize or engage Muskoka platform just to get some final input. But here's a section of road. Here's our path forward, and then ultimately it'll be the district's decision as we move forward. So I'm happy to put this forward for next. My voice is gone. I need water. Next round of council. Excuse me.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Edwards. Go ahead.
I think some of you by now know the journeys that Mike Silver has taken me on over the years with Torrance Barons. Yeah, long before I was a councillor, but I would say it's not something that is just up to Director Becking. I think there needs to be either Mike Silver or a councillor, whoever that would be. I don't believe we can just throw Director Becking out there and come up with the ideas. I think that, you know, identifying the locations and things like that, you know, there's a whole group of people that are involved with the Torrance Barons now, so we could send it back to them, but I don't want it to get lost because we didn't do a resolution today.
Okay, so as you will well know, given the agenda, we do not have a resolution in front of us today, so we'd be fashioning one. Councillor Edwards, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Now, is this a complete renaming of the road, or is it something like doing the Frank Miller Highway, even though it's still 118? So I would definitely support that because I wouldn't want to change the name of the road and put everybody through changing their address and everything else. But I would definitely support this if that is the case. Thank you.
Good. Just to circle back then to Michael Silver, if you could, I saw you shake your head. Is that your intent on this, that it would remain Southwood Road, the Prince Philip Way? Is that?
Exactly. The Frank Miller route, or whatever they're calling 169, is a good analogy. You'd have some signs and it could be known like that. I'll just say to council, I was in touch with Mark Misko of the district, and he had recommended the approach I'm taking to get the resolution of requests from the township first.
Good. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I think we're aware of that. Appreciate it. Okay, Councillor Roberts, you go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I see Director CAO Hammond has turned on his. Maybe you should go to him first.
Well, thank you for that. Chair Hammond, CEO Hammond.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members, committee, and to the delegates. So if I understand what committee's requesting, I believe you're requesting a staff report from Mr. Becking that would sort of fashion a process going forward as to how this might come about. I hear what Councillor Nishikawa was saying with respect to the actual name, and I think some thoughts about process. Perhaps Mr. Becking could connect with Mr. Silver and Councillor Nishikawa and come back with some of the thoughts in a staff report. Is it the wish of committee to have this come to council in the last council meeting in November, or do you want it to go to the next term of council?
Thank you. So we'll answer the question in a moment. Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you. That's what I was basically going to say. I feel this is a great idea. We've been talking for 10 minutes, and we got a lot of good information. But I prefer that Director Becking come back with a staff report, working with the community and scoping it out. And more importantly, the prime objective would be the process that we would have to follow. And I prefer that it not come to this council. I prefer that it goes to the next council. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a resolution to go to council, it's going back to June.
Right. Okay. So just for clarity in everyone's part, given the lame duck scenario or the election scenario where we find ourselves in, as there is no resolution this morning, it would have to come to GNF as moved as a motion, which of course this is our last meeting. So in fact, we would not be able to move it up. I know the mayor had indicated it could come to council in some manner next month, but I'm kind of getting a shaking of heads here. So I think if I might, just to look at committee, clearly there's a will, clearly there's obviously a way. I'm thinking that what we could do in the meantime is certainly to, I think what Councillor Edwards had indicated, if Councillor Nishikawa, Michael Silver, and Ken Becking could put their heads together, and Ken Becking would then, Director of Public Works, come back with a staff report. This could be the first thing on the new council's, new General Finance Committee's agenda in that new term of council. There is time. This is something that in the fulsome of time could come to fruition. I see Director Becking has put his camera on. Go ahead.
Just one small point, Mr. Chairman. I think add to the list would be Director Misko. May as well get him in the loop right from the beginning so that this becomes successful.
Good, thank you. And I do believe at the end of the day, Michael, if I'm looking right at you, sir, I mean, that was your intent, and certainly you're on that dance floor here. You've got everyone's attention. I think you're saying overwhelmingly good idea, and certainly let's put our heads together and find a way to make this thing move ahead. And again, we just are a little encumbered right at this moment, but that doesn't have to have anything to do with the ultimate outcome of your ask. So Director Becking, I'll look to you, sir, for that from our perspective as a Township Muskoka Lakes. And if you could interface with the folks that we've talked about today, the names that you've heard, much appreciated. And then that new council, new General Finance Committee, first thing they look at could be that item. Okay, committee, does that work for you? Everybody, can I get a sort of a thumbs up, shake your heads right on? Everybody's quite great. Okay, thank you. Michael?
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, thank you for the idea.
Bye now.
Right. Okay, item C. Would you like to take a 5-minute break before we carry on? Or do you want to? Okay, you know what? Maybe we'll hear Nick because we've been he's been waiting around for a little while. Item C, and then we'll have a quick break. Nicolaou at the Royal Muskoka Island Association to attend regarding Sagamo Boulevard, Royal Muskoka Island. Nick, are you here? Are you on? Here you go. You're muted, please, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Nick Nicolaou. I'm the president of the Royal Muskoka Island Association. My address is 1002 Seguin Place, Minette P0B1G0. The subject I want to talk about today is moving an existing road speed sign on Sagamo Boulevard on Royal Muskoka Island to Fairley Park Road, adding a children at play sign to that speed sign, and adding a new turtle crossing sign. RMI is a community that consists of 91 cottages in a closed loop road. Hence, many residents walk the roads, and we have internal common lands with tennis, pickleball courts, children's play areas with jungle gyms, basketball and baseball areas. So a lot of folks around and about near the road, necessitating slow vehicle speeds around the island. There's an existing 20-kilometre speed sign located on Sagamo Boulevard, halfway round Royal Muskoka Island, where it's obscured by trees. We wish to move it to the start of the island road on Fairley Park Road near the welcome sign, so people are aware when they come onto the island. If possible, we'd also like to add a children at play sign to the same pole due to children's recreational facilities nearby. When I approached our Ward C councillor, Barb Bridgman, on this, she inquired with Public Works, who had no record of the speed sign ever being installed, and declared it illegal and saying we had to move it or the township would remove it. I then sent correspondence from 1971 to the clerk, where a previous president of RMI wrote to the mayor asking for speed restriction signs to be installed. Unfortunately, I don't have a record of the township response, but the sign was put up, and hence we contend it's a legitimate sign. I also sent a photograph of the existing sign, which, as can be seen, is an official speed sign. Regarding the turtle crossing sign on Judhaven Road at the entrance of RMI, this was requested through Public Works in May 2021, and despite being asked for additional information, sending it, telephone calls and voicemails, nothing transpired. So I'd like to formalise that now. There's much wildlife that crosses this narrow causeway daily, foxes, deer. There's also many turtles, otters, beavers, snakes, ducks, and herons that cross over from the wetland to the lakeside across that causeway. There's a 24-year-old turtle that nests every year on the side of the road just up from the dry fire hydrant. Last year, the summer student biologist who lived on the island built cages to cover the turtle eggs. She'd be advised when the turtle was laying her eggs and would put a protective cage over them. It was our hope to save a few baby turtles before the fox got to them. These signs also help remind people to slow down and be aware of our precious wildlife that's in the area and should help avert casualties. I hope you'll agree with our requests, and I thank you for giving me time today to delegate.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Before I go to committee, I certainly want to, Director Becking, you're up again. From your perspective, I wonder if you could shine some light on this scenario.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it relates to the speed sign, we certainly have no record, or at least none that I'm aware of. The sign was put up, as I understand it, around 1971. At that time, speeds were in miles per hour, not kilometers per hour. I would have presumed that if the sign was put up at that time, it would have been in miles per hour, which equates to about 30 or 35 kilometers an hour currently. At the time, the Highway Traffic Act, which allowed for the posting of speed limits other than prescribed by the Act, would have been in miles per hour, and the lowest allowable speed would have been 25 miles an hour. So on that basis, I don't believe that the sign was a legal sign to begin with. That having been said, if we're going to make it legal, my advice to council would be to amend the traffic bylaw. The Highway Traffic Act does allow for speeds lower than 80 kilometers an hour. And the signs could be, if council were inclined to adopt a different speed limit, then the signs would be put up as directed by council. With respect to the other signs requested by the deputant, it's not legal to put multiple signs on a single sign. It invalidates the legal sign. So what I would recommend, if you're so inclined, we could put up the signs at other locations suitably separated and erect them as directed by council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. Yes, I did. I was involved in this, and to Director Becking's point, it sounds like perhaps that sign was not legal at the time if it was actually in kilometers. But this area, Royal Muskoka Island, I travel to it a lot, and it is very narrow, and there are always many, many people and children walking on it. So I would be very supportive of having that sign down, a speed sign right at the entrance, and then obviously the other signs appropriately dispersed. So I would, so Nick, I'm not sure, 20 kilometers per hour, 30 kilometers per hour, whatever the association would support, I would be supportive.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Nishikawa. Nick, I might come back to you, sir, in a moment. Councillor
Thank
Nishikawa.
you. I would suggest, in my experience of this location, it would be similar to the request that was brought forward in East Bay. My mind just went blank, but basically I believe we passed something that was 40 kilometers an hour. And I think that that would be the reasonable and correct thing to do.
Right, Director Becking.
Thanks for the promotion, Mr. Chairman. what I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, if you wish, have the matter referred to staff. Staff will come back with a report to the new committee, and then council can consider the matter, and we'll take whatever direction we're given.
Good, thank you. That's where I was going to go with it. Okay, Nick, I would give you one last little blast. I shouldn't, but go ahead, sir.
Just to qualify, the existing sign doesn't say miles or kilometers. It just says maximum 20. Just so everyone is aware. But I don't know what it was supposed to be. It was originally asked to be at 15, and to Councillor Nishikawa's point, I think a 40-kilometre-hour limit would be pointless. The whole purpose is to slow traffic down in a very tight residential area.
Yeah, so, and again, it's the reason why this committee charges our staff with the responsibility to come back with an observational document, if you will, or report on this particular situation, and comment, at which point in time then the committee can do that same and move it forward or deal with it at that manner. So that is going to be my suggestion. Sort of what I would prefer. I can see, I'm going to ask some of you nodding of heads or thumbs up. I think certainly, as Director Becking has mentioned, that would be the way forward. Nick, it will be, you've brought it to everyone's attention, and there will be a staff report in this regard. It will be under the new terms of, or the terms of the new council, and it will be in a month or a few months. Okay, but it will be looked at. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Okay. I think we might just take it's 10 after 10. Let's take maybe a 10-minute break, begging the indulgence of Ron Allgate, and then we'll hear about the Ballard Cranberry Festival, item 4D. Thank you. I am muted. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I want to welcome as well Mr. Ron Allgate. Ron, hopefully you're here with us. You are item 4D, and you are an amazing community member, fundraiser, and helper to Bala Torrance. So thank you for that, sir. And we're here to hear you. There you are. You're in the weeds. Morning, Ron. You good? Can you hear us? You're muted.
Okay,
There you go. Welcome, sir.
thank you very much. Sorry, I thought I'd been missed. So my position is I'm going by what happened the last time we had the Cranberry Festival with the beer tent, and that was I've got the copy of the bill for renting the space at Jaspin Park, and it was charged at a commercial park fee of $500 flat rate, but that was credited. And in the comments on the form, it says, please provide a certificate of insurance along with the special occasions permit as per resolution COW-9-11 0816, exempt from the commercial park fee and damage deposit. So there was nothing required to be paid 2 years ago. 3, sorry. And so I'm wondering what the change of the policy has been and why we would have to pay it now.
Okay, thank you for that, sir. And I think I'll invite Corey Moore, our economic development advisor. There is Corey right there. Now, Corey, just pre that, I'm wondering if Ruth has her hand up, and Ruth's vitally involved in the Bala Cranberry. Ruth, do you have a comment?
I have history. So during different, sorry, something's coming up on my screen. During, in past years, sometimes the festival would take the beer tent under their umbrella, and sometimes the curling club would take it under their umbrella, and the Lions would be have it as well. But the intention was never to charge those users, because again, these are volunteers that are, the money is just going back into the community. And that's essentially where we are today again. Again, these monies are just going back into the community. It's interesting because we haven't seen the curling club of Bala come to this council for money for many, many years, other than the waiving of these types of fees, where we've been asked to benefit many thousands to some other clubs. So this is a fundraiser for the curling club, but it also mostly goes back to the community. And I think that we should move this forward.
Good, thank you. Now, just for context, either yourself, Ruth, or Ron, I guess for the benefit of the rest of the committee who may not be as aware, and it certainly isn't any sort of information on our agenda in terms of background. So as I understand it, Ron's asking the question, and Mr. Allgate, maybe I'll let you ask that question once more just for clarity. Your question is for the Township Muskoka Lakes to waive a fee or two that seem to be new or a surprise.
Correct. So I'm just asking for the same treatment that we had at the last time that we had the festival and had the Jaspin Park beer tent, which is that our fees were waived.
Okay, good. So I guess the question we're going to ask here of Mr. Moore is, why are there different factors at play, I guess is the question. So Corey.
These are not different. This is actually how we've dealt with it in the past. And it just basically comes to this council to waive the fees. And I'm just saying, because Ron is new to this part of
Good.
his role.
Fair enough. So Corey, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. Councillor Nishikawa is correct. The fees and the policy itself is not new. What's happened in the past is the club operating the beer tent requests the fees to be waived, which was done 2 or 3 years ago, I believe. Mr. Algate stated the last time the beer garden was operated, and simply the curling club is looking for those fees for the park rental, which I believe is the $500, and the special event permit, which is the $50 to be waived for this year as well.
Okay, thank you. Committee will look to that. First of all, Councillor Edwards, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. I would support this 100%. Their volunteers in the community do so much work. It all goes back in, and I would support this, and I would support, and that Councillor Nishikawa's move on this. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other committee members? Any comments? Not seeing anything. Anyone opposed to this? No, I'm saying no. I'm saying most in favor of this. Okay, good. I'm seeing that most. Okay, yeah. So what we'll require here and now is a 2/3 motion to get this up to where we could create a resolution or motion on this at this point in time. So do I have 2/3 majority? No.
No.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. We do need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break to get that in front of you.
Right.
And then you're going to read the motion.
You got it. Okay, so we will take a 5-minute break and create that resolution and come right back. Okay, thank you.
Are we live?
We are live. Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. Everyone's here? Good, thank you. So I have two resolutions here to read. Given everyone is present, we're missing Councillor Mazan, and I'm hesitant to call a vote without everyone here. Councillor Mazan, are you just off camera? Okay, well, we'll have to do the math. Okay, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts, whereas 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedure Bylaw 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without notice of council, without debate, dispenses with notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Township Council hereby dispenses with notice to consider and vote on the following: that the township exempt the curling club from the park rental fees and special event permit fee on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. Does that, guys, is that only one day, Councilor Nishikawa, or is that, are you looking for 3 days? We've mentioned, it's references Saturday, October. One day? Saturday. October 22nd. Good, thank you. Before I ask for a show of hands, the mayor has his hand up. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. Just a technical question to the clerk. The resolution or the section we just talked about is Township Council. We're not sitting in Township Council, we're sitting in committee. I realize Township Council can't vote on it and approve it for 2/3, but is that more of an issue for when this gets to council, if it was to walk onto council versus committee level? Just a question.
We'll make an edit right now.
Ooh, a good one. That's a good catch. Yeah. How do I read that paragraph over?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Guess that's why you get the big bucks.
Councillor Zavitz,
Also, yes, go ahead.
prior to reading it, could you allow Ron Algate to speak once more?
Oh, sorry, Ron. I guess I will, certainly. Ron? You're muted, Ron.
You've mentioned the date, October 22nd. It's actually this coming Saturday, October 15th.
Yes.
Just want to maybe remind that this is one.
No. I'm not doing your dirty work. Okay, I have a paragraph to read. Now therefore be it resolved, the Township Committee hereby dispenses with notice to consider and vote on the following: that the township exempt the curling club from the park rental fees and special event permit fee on Saturday, October the 15th, 2022. I need 2/3 majority. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Says mayor at the bottom, by the way. Okay, the second resolution, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that the Bala Curling Club be exempt from the park rental fee of $500 plus tax and the special event permit fee of $50 plus tax for the rental of the Jasmine Park Pavilion on the Saturday, October 15, 2022 during the Bala Cranberry Festival. All those in favor? It's carried. Mr. Algate, go sell some beer. Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and all the best on the festival. Thank you. Okay. We're in our agenda, item 5, Public Works, Roads and Infrastructure. We have no commentary today. Item 6, Corporate Services. We have a report from Kayleen Durchett, our Communications Advisor, regarding a communications update. So Kate, there you are. Welcome. Nice to see your smiley face. Welcome, and go ahead with your report. Item 6A. Thank you.
Thank you. And through you, I'm coming to you today to provide a communications update on my first 6 months in the new role. The first 6 months have been busy ones. We've laid the groundwork by building both internal and external relationships, gaining a thorough understanding of processes, understanding the gaps that do exist, and providing timely communications. With the upcoming election, I've been supporting the clerk's terms and communicating with the electorate, including regular website updates and posting on social media. We have an exciting path ahead of us, which includes a communication strategic plan, which will be undertaken in-house and provided to the new term of council for input. We understand that there are ongoing opportunities to improve communications activities to better serve our community, and we look forward to those improvements. As highlighted in the report, in light of the timing of the election, it is anticipated that staff will begin the development of a communication strategy / plan in early 2023.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, unless
Okay.
anyone has any questions.
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you so much. And a great report. Lots to do, lots already done. Thank you for that. You clearly are a great communicator. So good job in that role. I would ask committee, any thoughts or comments on the report in front of you? This is for information purposes, and seeing no, there's Councillor Roberts. Go ahead, sir. Gord, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm just getting that little button turned off. Thank you, Chair. What I'd like to ask through you about the communication strategic plan, if it will include a list of of councils, present councils, top communication synopsis documents that we talked about. You'll recall back in October, or I guess first of the year, during the budget process, it was this council's desire to really beef up our communications to our constituents. And for over the last 6 or 7 weeks, I've heard much input from constituents on what should it be. And it should be our top priorities, being, Cole's notes, for lack of a better word, on the building processes, on the planning process, on the official plans, and the comprehensive zoning bylaws. So what my question to staff is, will the strategic plan include input from this council on what they think should the documents we should be doing, and for I guess for next council? And does it include education as part of the strategic plan? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. Kayleen, is there something you'd want to offer or opine on?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, Councillor Roberts, obviously there are a lot of priorities that this council has when it comes to communications and educating the community, and all of those will be taken into consideration when we work towards developing the new strategy with new council. That being said, it's important to kind of have the groundwork and the foundation of procedures and processes in place to ensure that we're effectively and efficiently communicating all of the appropriate information to then move forward.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for that input. Will the communication strategic plan include a survey asking the constituents what they think would be good documents to abbreviate for them in Coles Notes format? Thank you.
Kayleen.
Thank you. Through you. Yeah, absolutely. We'll go out for public consultation, but we'll bring a report forward to new council in early 2023, and that's going to outline the whole process of what the communications plan / strategy is going to look like.
Good, thank you. I'm hearing about the communications strategic plan. Can we speak to how that melds and meshes with our existing and ongoing strategic plan forged some 4 years ago that hopefully carries us through for a few more years? Does anyone want to speak to that? Is there anyone that might speak to that? Oh, CEO Hammond.
Thanks, Chair Zavitz. I think the process, as Kayleen has identified, the process is yet to be determined. But I think, you know, some examples, we had an economic development strategy, sort of bylaw review. And I think I take council back to our strategic plan and implementation document, and it did envision this strategy. So in a crawl, walk, run fashion, continuous improvement, that's where Kayleen is taking us. So we're pretty impressed with direction and progress with our communications team so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, CAO, and thank you for that, Kayleen. Okay, good. Councillor Roberts is signing off, so that's, thank you. No, I'm just saying, signing off on this particular issue. So, okay, any other comments or thoughts, committee? Okay, well, that's great. Thank you again, Kayleen, and thank you for your presentation today. And we look forward to witnessing and being part of your work down that road. Okay, item 7A, we will accept into the record the minutes of the Public Library Board meeting held on August 9th, 22, as minutes and a CEO report. As well, item 7B, minutes for the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee meeting held on February 23rd, 2022, minutes thereof. So thank you for that. Item 8A, I will call on Corey Moore, Economic Development Officer, regarding the Lock Street pedestrian area review. There's a report attached in your agenda. Corey, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, today's report, just an information report, provides some feedback on the Lock Street pedestrian area pilot project that we completed this past summer. As committee is aware, we embarked on this exciting new initiative launching July 1st, and we celebrated the launch with a community barbecue, and the street remained closed and available to pedestrians only right through to September 6th, the right after Labor Day. Throughout the summer, we covered the street with picnic tables, offered live life-size games for families to entertain themselves. We also partnered with the Muskoka Lakes Chamber to offer some live music nights as well, and worked with the local businesses to extend their operating hours on those nights. And overall, I think the project itself was successful. It was a pilot, a short-term initiative to gain an understanding of the pros, the cons, what worked, what maybe didn't, as we look towards future longer-term developments in that particular area. It's a very busy section in Port Carling with both pedestrian and vehicle traffic. And as identified at the beginning of the project, we wanted to look at how to make that area more safe for everyone down there. Upon conclusion of the project, we've begun collecting feedback on it. We met with the local businesses, cruise ship operators, and district staff to get some of their comments and feedback. We also issued a public survey to gather the public's comments, and the chamber was able to present us with a final report on the live music nights initiative as well. And with that, some of the pros, the cons, some of those feedbacks can be found within the report. Attached in Appendix 1 are some images I've taken throughout the summer on some of the different events we held, the look of the street, etc. And moving forward, what we're looking for today is just some more feedback from this committee, help answer any questions if there were any, and that way we can prepare more short and long-term plans and report back to committee with them, and include any funding requirements that may be needed in the 2023 budget. So with that, Chair, maybe I'll turn it back to committee for feedback and questions.
Good, thank you for that great report. Good observations. Mayor Harding, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a quick thank you to Mr. Moore for your hard work in the setting up of this, and games days and making things happen, being around obviously for the live music nights. It's disappointing, I think I said at the chamber event a little while ago, that we don't keep some businesses open, and that businesses don't stay open for when we do live music in the evenings. It would be fun to create a better atmosphere and a better vibe for that. And I also have to say, I'm a little bit disappointed that we had all of 16 people on the survey respond to this. You know, sure 73% want something, but 16 people is really not a statistically sound survey. So I think just as we move forward on this for next summer, certainly I'm in support of this, but any little tweaks and changes, want to be obviously cognizant about how emphatic we are about thou must do this or thou must do that. So thank you.
Okay, good words. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Just a couple of times that I attended while the street was closed. And again, it was just my personal experience. More directional signage of where parking can and should be. You know, in one instance, I did have to park at the Legion, quite frankly. And you know, it's a little bit of a jaunt, and that's fine. But I was just considering as well. It didn't feel like there was if we were keeping one parking location open that people could just pull in and drop people off, that would be an assistance. I would just say, moving forward, looking at some of those access points, and also I'm really looking forward to, or maybe I'm just not up to date, of when the district puts in the crosswalk and things. That seems to be a challenge to me.
Okay, good. Corey, I saw you writing some notes there. You captured some of that commentary. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Edwards, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. And that's through the chair. Maybe what we could do is work with the chamber on some of these. Like Bracebridge has a midnight madness sale and something like that, where they encourage the businesses to open up on those live music nights, so that, you know, get everybody involved. And the chamber would be a good one to talk to. Thank you.
Good start. Thank you. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you, I just wanted to pick up actually on both of those previous comments. The first is on the parking. I actually did attend a couple of the evenings, and it was interesting to watch. The last one I was there, one of the local golf courses has a limo service or some kind of car service from the golf course to this drop-off spot to walk down, I guess, to a boat to get to their place on Lake Rosso. And the interesting thing is, as the music was going, I saw two people exit these cars and actually kind of do a little bit of a jig as they were walking past the music and going down. So as far as a vibe, I just think it's all these little passive moments that actually add to an experience, but just doing it in a thoughtful way, I think is important. Coming back to Councillor Nishikawa, and I'm not sure if this is what Councillor Nishikawa is talking about. When I was observing that car parking, they had to pull up and actually still park kind of on the street in order to let this person exit and get out into the car. I'm seeing you nod. Is that what you were saying as well, Councillor Nishikawa? So I think there's probably some interesting ways to be able to permit, you know, simply even by moving those boulders or the boundary back a little bit and creating some parking spots or something. I mean, I leave that to the experts, but just to make it a little bit safer to have people exiting. When I was there, Corey, Mr. Moore and I did speak about some other opportunities, if this is still a determined location, to add some, and I'll call it beautification, but some better use of the space. Like there's a whole grassy knoll. It's not particularly stable, or like it's not flat. So from a planning standpoint, I think there's some really interesting opportunities in this space if we can do it thoughtfully and if it's supported by the businesses. And the last thing I did want to support what Councillor Edwards said, that if we're going to do this, let's make sure we're connecting all the key stakeholder groups appropriately and effectively so you get the maximum benefit out of it. So I think it was a wonderful trial for this year, some good key learnings, but I think that in order to keep making that happen and being effective, there's some interesting space in there. So you get the right people talking about it. I'm confident that this thing can continue to evolve and grow. So
thank you.
Thank you. I think that was it.
Yeah, it's good. No, and again, are we on record? Is there any negativity? I'm not hearing, I'm not hearing, did we as a township receive commentary about the negative aspects to allocating the space for a more social environment? And I guess secondarily, what would this have cost the township in terms of an investment to provide this gathering place for the public? So I don't know. I'm not hearing any negatives. I mean, that's great. We didn't hold up, I guess what I'm saying, did we hold up people getting to their boats to go to Lake Rossmore, et cetera, et cetera? Was there some negative commentary, or is that just fine the way we've commandeered that space and use thereof? And then, what did we spend? What return on investment? I'm not really looking for that. I think Councillor Mazan said it very well. The vibe is what we were looking for, and they're essentially the middle of our township in a development area. So anyway, Corey, you might want to ponder that. I'll ask Councillor Nishikawa what she might want to say here.
Thank you. I just want to also add the lens of accessibility to the conversation. And certainly we're having conversations about what accessibility looks like during a Cranberry Festival. But so if I was to give you an example, if in any case, if we were going to just put some boulders in a location, how is that going to be passable by wheelchair? Like all of that, there's a lot of things, but it's an interesting conversation because our accessibility committee with the district is now asking, or we're looking at what do all of these festivals, what are all of these public events throughout the district, what do they look like from an accessibility thing? And is there something that, for instance, each municipality could sort of pick up a guideline and that we're following? And so we're actually paying attention to those, because accessibility means so many things. It's not just about physical handicaps, it's a lot about a lot of other things. And I think that our municipality needs to be more engaged and aware of that.
Okay, good, thank you. And Corey, I would imagine you've carved that into your report, and as you bring this forward to that new council for next year, next season, you'll be able to expand on some of those questions and comments added today. Committee, any other comments or thoughts on that? Okay, good. Well, thank you for that, Corey, and yes, thanks for your report. I would acknowledge item 8B, which are the minutes of the Grants and Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting of August 31st. We accept those minutes into the record. Item 9, committee, any unfinished business you'd like to bring forward? After 4 years, we've finished the business. Okay, item number 10, under new business. District Municipality of Muskoka updates. We have our 4 representatives of the township at the district. I'll call on the mayor first, Mayor Harding.
Thank you. We actually did not have an engineering and public works meeting, and I've already reported on the Muskoka area Indigenous leadership roundtable discussion and the signing of our Friendship Accord. And just note again, it was great to see Councillor Nishikawa in attendance, and a number of other district councillors who were in attendance from various municipalities. Really good event that happened. There was another one that I attended in August, which was the Wahta First Nations powwow, which was really quite an amazing event as well, to see First Nations communities from across the country in attendance. So we continue to build with truth and reconciliation. Thanks.
Good, thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, go ahead.
Well, I would just say health services is generally, we're bringing updates about the Fairburn long-term care home and the challenges with that and the provincial involvement. I think Councillor Jagowitz would comment more about the cost of this project and how that's going to affect the district, but as well as, you know, who pays for what, right? Where does the province come in and where do they step up? And then certainly we've had updates about our paramedic and paramedicine services, which I'm very, very grateful that we have that ability to help out those that need that medical assistance provided by our paramedics. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, well, we'll call on Councillor Jaglowitz.
Thank you, Chair. The Finance and Corporate Services Committee did meet on September 26th, and we took a look at how our budget was coming along. There's going to be a deficit, not that large, but fuel costs added over 400,000 to the cost of operating the district's vehicles. Paramedics, same issue. Also, higher costs at the Pines. One bright spot was solid waste had a $300,000 gain and able to sell their recyclables for higher prices. But an interesting thing that came out of it, more interesting than anything, is as you recall, you no longer need stickers on your license plate. And so that was causing a lot of concern because the provincial offenses that are collected by the district are the main collection. One of the main collection tools is you can't renew your license unless you paid your fines. And so that became an issue. What will happen if there are no sticker, that people don't have to renew their licenses? And I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that you don't get a sticker, you still have to renew it. And so the OPP are equipping all their vehicles with new equipment that will be able to scan your license plate and determine whether you have renewed your vehicle or renewed your plates. So there was, although that's not final, there's some hope that the district won't end up with a huge amount of unpaid fines. The other interesting thing that came out of the council meeting on the same date was the 2021-22 Ontario Ombudsman's report came out. And if you go to the agenda for that meeting at the district, you'll find a link there to that report. And it's very interesting to read it because the Ontario Ombudsman actually acts as integrity commissioner for municipalities that don't have one. And the report's very detailed and does name municipalities, and there's some interesting things there. The district was quite pleased that they were not named. That's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that cautionary tale. Okay, Councillor Edwards, sir, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair Zavitz. Our meeting on the 22nd, the Children and Senior Services, the Canada-wide Early Learning and Child Care System update. Everybody has to be licensed now, and they've added up until November the 1st to sign up for a license, because I guess they're not getting all these childcare spaces. Right now we have 20 operators, and we're filling 524 spaces, though I believe there's still a waiting list for some. On the Ontario Works, the community grants update, and I don't have all the figures there now, but out of all the money that was allocated, there's $26,000 left. But when I did go through it, there wasn't one allocation of funding for Muskoka Lakes, and I questioned it. And the Andy's House had put in a request, but they said it didn't meet it. But they were going to divert the $26,000 to transportation. I said, no, it should be going into grants. So they were looking at it, working with Andy's House, and hopefully they will get a grant at some point for this and that. So that's that one. On the environment, because the councillors haven't been going in, and that there's the driving saving calculator tool per year, it saved 240 tons of greenhouse gases and approximately $100,000 liters of fuel. And that, so there are some benefits maybe to Zoom meetings and things like that. And there was just some extensions. The lake health system, as everyone knows, Leonard Lake, Senate 3 Mile Lake, and Stewart Lake, which is in Georgian Bay and Muskoka, are featured in the causation studies. there was some approvals for, and that condominiums was all in other municipalities. And I guess that is my report.
Good, thank
So
you
I
very
would like to, what I would like to say is community updates is coming up, and since I'm still on there, I'll just give an update. The Windermere Cherry Fox Run, for the first time ever, has raised over $50,000 for Cherry Fox this year, and it's still climbing. And that's, so I just want to congratulate the community for their support. Thank you.
Excellent news. Thank you. And thank you for your role in that. Yes, item 10B is community events update. Councillor Nishikawa, you go ahead.
Cranberry, all come. That's all. But mostly, I actually wanted to raise one other issue under community updates. And the reason why I'm choosing community updates is because of the effect on our community. And I'm just also hoping that we can move things forward to the new council and to district. Once again, this past weekend was horrific on 169 with the parking at Hardy Lake Park. There was total disregard for the no parking signs along 169. We had, the traffic was slowed. In my experience, we had to travel no faster than 20 kilometers an hour. And again, this is an 80 kilometer an hour road. We could go no faster than 20 kilometers. It was double parked from Walker's Point Road right through to the other, I would say, the one canoe location that we had. And people were walking in the middle of the road with small children. They had no concern about anybody or anything. And I think our municipality has to get a little bit more serious about these actions. The phone calls for me were terrible, quite honestly. What am I going to do about this? You know, yes, I phoned the police I was telling others they need to phone the police, but in fact, the police were only directing traffic. And that was very disappointing. There's no tickets given, there's nothing. And so I would hope that moving forward that this committee and you know, in the new year that we do something a little more serious, because again, people were they were doing UEs, pulling trailers. Like it was the ridiculousness. And I will bring forward those videos that were sent to me as well, because again, we can't just keep ignoring this.
Oh, listen, I totally agree. Witness it right beside you there. So it is what it is. Yeah. Councillor Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee and the World Wide Web. Milford Bay Community Center, or the Milford Bay community. We this recently funded by the community, installed in the playground area, is the first stages of a mud kitchen. And basically a mud kitchen is a little structure made out of wood. It has pots and pans and spatulas and spoons and sand. And that was put in there. And I was there last night watching the children, and they just love this little kitchen that was installed, and that was funded by the community. And now the next part of that is the mud. So I don't know how the community is going to go about getting mud into that kitchen, but it's going to be quite an event. But the children that were there, I interviewed a few, and they just loved it, and they were making up a pine and pine cone stew for me. So it was being quite creative. So also in the Milford Bay community, we are coming out of the ashes of COVID, and to that end, there's a little flyer that circulated through the community, and the header on the flyer is, "There is no power greater for change than a community discovering what it cares about." So in that light, we are having on Thursday, October the 13th, which will be the tomorrow evening, from 7 to 9, we've asked everyone in the community to come out and find out information about their community club that is run out of the community center. And they're going to update the community on all the functions that are performed by the community club. And they're looking for volunteers to step up to do some stuff, such as the big one that I've missed is the May volunteer firemen's pancake breakfast that was there for years. We just don't have volunteers. So this is really trying to get the younger group within the community involved in the whole building of community. So that's just a message from the Milford Bay community. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your efforts. Okay, committees, are any other comments or thoughts on item 10B, community events update? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on to item number 11, which of course is in your agenda, on your agenda, and referenced in your agenda. All the correspondence listed was received and is a matter of public record. Any comments on that? Seeing none. Item number 12, we do not have any closed session. Item number 13, I would move to adjournment of this current sitting General Finance Committee. So given that, moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Roberts, be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 11:12 a.m. and the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, December the 14th, 2022 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the council chambers municipal office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor?
Carried.
That's carried. Thank you, committee. We'll see you in a few hours at council. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair, for stick handling us through the last couple of years on this committee.
My pleasure.